Welcome to Design to Help Your Business Grow. I'm your host, Randy Lynn Johnson with Pasley Commercial Interiors.
Okay, so we've set up our year. Now, Robin, I know that you had a question. Let's see, by the time this episode hits, it might be this week. We might be stating our new old president.
Yes, the new
again.
old president, yes. Yeah. And so we've already had some questions coming our way about the tariffs because we are furniture dealers. Mm-hmm. And there's a mix of vendors that we have, some that are coming what we call over the water, which means they're made in China, mostly. We have a few vendors like that. Most of our vendors, though, are in Canada. And then the rest of them are here in America. So, what we know is even the ones here, they are getting some of their supplies, some of their components are coming over the water. So tariffs are going to hit us no matter where your products are made, or at least they're going to be considered. But I want to know, because there's already been a little alarm going off that I hear of people freaking out that this is going to be like seen as, we're going to feel it like a tax. What do you think about that?
I mean, I guess it could be perceived as a tax, but fortunately, we still live in a free country. And all companies will have the choice on whether they continue to source from those countries that have a tariff imposed against them, or companies may have to get creative. They may have to, seek out new supply sources from maybe countries that are not being impacted by the tariffs. So I think that you're going to see, number one, companies are going to have to get creative, and then number two, potentially looking for other sources of being able to source the products that they're going to need to continue operating their businesses, and so their margins are not impacted negatively.
Yeah, like I know that TFL, which is thermal foil laminates, many of them are made in China, but there are some that are made in Italy. And that's a component that's used to build furniture. And so they can just source, like you're saying, maybe just go to Italy to source instead of from China.
I volunteer.
Right?
Buongiorno.
There may be a lot of business travel that results from some of these tariffs with companies and people attempting to establish new relationships in other parts of the world.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. I do remember, too, because, what I would say to a little bit of that fear is at least we're dealing with a president that has done something like this before. He did impose tariffs on his first presidency. And I remember seeing the same kind of, we were all a little bit like, what is that going to do? And I do remember on some of my invoices seeing it come in as a line item. We'd have to decide if we were going to pass that along to our clients or if we were going to absorb that. And I guess that you've seen that too. You've talked about that a little bit, about margins and trying to decide what to do.
So, I always say, well, number one, any potential issue or, call it a problem that you may be faced with, and especially ones we have zero control over, essentially. There's always an opportunity, right? There's always potential solutions.
It's a great way to see that.
However, let's say that we're in the place where we have great vendor relationships and those tariffs do impact those suppliers and companies like, I can't find anybody else, right? Then at that juncture, they may be stuck with a tough decision to say, okay, now I'm having to pay, whatever percentage that tariff is, 10 or 20% higher on those goods that I was sourcing, a couple months ago that were cheaper, right? Well, at that point, a company's probably going to be forced to pass that price increase along to their customers. And of course, you're going to have some customers that are probably not going to be happy, but that customer might be in the same boat as well. They may have had to, pay that tariff, pay the higher prices because they source from the same country. So there's going to be a lot of companies and just, people that are going to be in similar situations.
Yeah. That's a good way to see
Will
that.
require pivoting. But what I'm hearing is we shouldn't panic.
No.
It's going to be okay, right?
We can be nimble.
Yeah.
Life is too short to panic.
I agree.
I like that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, right. So we've got tariffs, but also it's sort of like inflation, right? That was a big kind of to do this year, last year. It went up. I mean, I felt it. Yeah. I think everybody felt it. Yeah. But we're still standing.
Right.
And okay, Brian, I want to hear from you as a CPA who you probably saw it in greater measure and, talking with a lot of people. What was that like?
So we did, because we actually sit down with our companies quarterly, and we could see when inflation started to really pick up, we could see the impact on companies' bottom lines, so on their profit margins. And because we meet with our companies so frequently, we picked up on that right away. So we worked with a lot of our companies on saying, hey, your input, prices are going up and you have zero control over that. You have to increase your pricing to your customers. Because if you don't, then your margins are going to start to come down. And all of a sudden you're going to be, a year in, and you're going to say, my revenues are the same and I worked just as hard, but I made 20% less than I made last year, right? And that's usually not a great feeling for, anybody to go through, especially as a business owner, right? So yes, it's almost like it's almost like a necessary evil. Like your hands are tied behind your back, and it's like, what else do you do? Big corporations do this all the time. Anytime they have their input prices increase, their insurance, their overhead, their rent, whatever they're sourcing, their material costs and such, they're going to go up every single year. So for a long time there, 2% was a very small blip on the radar. It was almost like unnoticeable. But once we started to ramp up into the, 6-8%, maybe even 10% range, at that point, it does have an impact, because it's also compounding too. It's not, people had talked about, and they had the hope that we would go back down at some point. That's probably not going to happen. So at that point, a company does have to adapt. If they want to survive, they have to pass that along to their customers. And then same thing, if it's a B2B, that business is going through the same exact thing. They're probably having to do the same thing.
I like your positive approach to all of this, though, because when we were talking offline, your note was, "We're still here. We're all still doing business together. We're maybe getting pinched here or pinched there, but we're all still in it together." And I think that's a really positive way to see the things, like you said, we can't control them. So why, instead of living our lives in a ball of knots, I like that.
That's great.
Focusing energy on things we can't control to me is just, it's not productive.
Yeah.
And it's not good for your health either. I mean, they say that stress could be the silent killer, right? So
Well, that's good. I think this is a great conversation to have as we start 2025, and we just know we're going to handle the things that we can control, what's in front of us, and we're going to keep stepping, keep moving forward, and we have great people.
Everyone.
Stay positive.
Stay positive.
You need a boost of positivity. Come find me and Robin.
That's right.
If you need help with all your financial needs and taxes, because it makes my eyes cross. It literally
makes my
I
head
thank
hurt.
God every day that my husband is just like, he just handles the budget.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm good at so many things, and that's not it.
my wife's the same as well. So
See, that works out great for you.
she's like, sometimes I'm so thankful I married an accountant.
Yeah, super. Well, if you're not married to an accountant, or even if you are, go talk to Brian and his team. They're going to help you out. Again, link to where you can contact him is in the show notes. But we really, really appreciate you coming down and just chatting with us, reassuring our listeners, and just being such a great member of this Colorado Springs community.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you for being such a wonderful community member as well. I mean, it does. It takes a village, right? It takes a community, and we all got to look out for each other and love on each other and best support each other, however that looks.
For sure.
I'm glad we're all in it together.
Yep.
In an increasingly competitive market, the merits of using interior design as a strategic growth tool can make all the difference in not just surviving, but thriving.
Pasley Commercial Interiors, designed to help your business grow.